and both of my buddies, they just kind of turned and looked at each other, and they said, "Bro, you're like 4 or 5 feet away from the pool, dude. Your legs are flat on the ground." And I said, "Okay, well, call the ambulance because I broke my neck."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just knew, like I said, I've always been an intelligent person. My choices haven't always lined up with that, but yeah, I knew what happened immediately.
Well,
And
I would think that calmness at first saved your life, because
oh, it did.
you
It
use up so much oxygen, moving around, even if
Yeah.
you're holding your breath. So I'm sure you lasted that long because you weren't using the oxygen that you had by being calm, So,
Yeah.
Your inner self was doing a quick assessment.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, in the middle of crazy things like that, like I said, I was always, when I was younger, the whole time I was up in Oregon, I'd be the first one to jump off the 80-foot cliff into the water, the 40-foot bridge, things like that. I'd be the first one to climb to the top of the rock face at the at the rock quarries and things like that. I was always first, and everyone else would be stalling because they didn't want to go first. And I was just like, well, and I'd never even done these things before, but I was always like, well, and you guys are going to stand around for too long. I'm just going to go, because I'm not here to talk about doing it. I'm gonna do it. So,
I'm a doer.
Because of those
I'm a doer.
things, right? Yeah, I'm a doer. Yeah. So, because of that,
imagine you wouldn't change a thing about that.
No, I mean,
Right?
like everything I went through, it made me the person that I was. I wish I would have realized when I was young that some of that go get itness, that just be the funny guy, be the happy guy all the time, was because of the severe depression that I had inside, which is something I'm just finally learning here. Recently, I've been seeing a counselor and stuff for the past 6 months or something like that.
Bravo.
And yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's not easy, growing up in the time that I did. Most people, they don't want to talk about that. You don't want people to see you as weak. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be upset. You're not supposed to, you're a man, be a man. Like, don't show that emotion. Like, don't be weak.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But I wish I'd have had other people around me, that could have told me that it was okay, to be, to have that weakness, and to learn how to deal with it, and to deal with the stuff that I had in my past. And because after the wheelchair, I still didn't do that. I used my humor, and I used my funny way of interjecting in any kind of conversation to get a laugh out of somebody. I could turn any sentence that you make into something, off the wall or a little dirty or whatever, to make everybody around me laugh. And they go, "How the heck did you get that out of that?" It's like, well, hey, I don't know.
That's your superpower.
A lot of years of practice.
That was exactly, yeah.
Deflection is a superpower.
Exactly, it was, and it like I said, it took me a really long time to realize that comedy was all coming from a place of pain, to not feel pain, to not feel that despair and that hurt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it tough for the people around you to even consider the fact that you're having any issue. Right? Oh, he's always happy. He's always making the jokes.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
I am. And when I'm around people, like, I made the comment, I think, when one of the meetings that we had here lately at Possibilities, that because of that, and I kept myself away from anybody with a disability. Anytime I was around them, at the doctor's office, or when I'd see people out or whatever, I'd always tell them about Possibilities and stuff, but I didn't utilize it myself. I didn't want to look at my own mortality, my own disability, because I still was trying to live like it never happened. and that I wasn't that way. But as soon as I was by myself, as soon as I was alone, all of those feelings and all that fear and all that despair and everything would be there, just messing with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've overcome the addiction?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yep.
Good. That's tough. Congratulations.
Yeah, I had 12 years. I had 12 years clean. And then I had a relapse. It lasted a few years. Yeah. Off and on. A couple years, and then I got away from it again, then a couple years again.
Which is not uncommon, right, Shane? I mean,
it's not uncommon, you know what I mean? But
that's why I say it's so tough, and anybody I've known that's become clean, they've had a couple of setbacks. It's just part of it, right?
Yeah, and I just being in my position, I don't feel hunger, like normal people do. So when I was on the drugs, I wouldn't eat. So both times I went from 175 pounds down to 100. I think I was 125 or something like that. Wow. The first time, and like I said, I'm 6'2". Yeah. So, and the second time, I went all the way down to like 113 pounds.
Wow.
And
that must have been frightening for people.
Yeah, and both times I ended up with a bunch of sores. Yeah. Because I wouldn't get out of my chair.
So this is post-injury.
Yeah, this is post-injury.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, this is both times I wouldn't get out of my chair or my truck, because if I was in my truck, I could go and I didn't have to worry about if I wasn't strong or I didn't feel, like I had a lot of energy or whatever. So, but after that, like I said, I had a couple of years clean after the first time like that, and then I've got like, I want to say it's over 2 years again now. And that happened a lot because of COVID. When COVID happened, I was doing really well. I was volunteering through Loma Linda. I was going and seeing people in the hospital that had just had spinal cord injuries. I was volunteering and going and talking to people at the rehab center and stuff like that. And I was the happiest I'd ever been. And even before, I was in the wheelchair. So I had really started to forgive myself and all those kind of things. And then COVID happened, and I was afraid to leave the house. I was afraid to go anywhere, and had some people around that weren't the best influence. And so I ended up falling back into that for a couple of years. And,
so getting back out again helped then to recover again.
Absolutely. Anytime I'm stuck in my head, and not being able to be around people, it's not a good thing. We're not meant to be solitary creatures. We're not, I don't do well by myself. And the more people I'm around, the more people I can talk to, the more I can be open with people about the things that have happened with me and see that spark, some kind of recognition in themselves. It's 100% selfish. I said this before in the meeting too. It's 100% selfish because I do it because it makes me feel good to see somebody else get something from it. It's not, I don't do it because I'm a great person. I try to be person,
even if you don't think so. Yeah. I'll tell you, it may feel like a selfish gesture. Okay, you can call it that. But I, standing on the outside, will say it's still an act of service.
I've said the same thing. I volunteer a lot, and I always tell people, I get more out of it than the people, that I'm volunteering to help,
Yeah, because I don't know how much they get out of it at all because I don't see them.
Right. You rarely do.
I have my conversation. I tell them how, especially here lately, I've been really trying to talk about the depression, and stuff, which is, which has been a big deciding factor in all of my bad decisions throughout my life.